Hello, and welcome to episode 21 of Fish Wrap TV. Today is Friday, June 25th. I'm your host, Janie Hansen, filming your weekly market update live from Blue Earth, Minnesota with Q-Lair. The big topic today is drought, so we'll talk about how that's affecting the corn and soybean markets. We'll also cover what happened with today's Supreme Court decision on RFS, the Renewable Fuels Standard, and once again discuss inflation, today mostly centered around energy. All right, Q, what's happening with the drought and the markets?
Well, I'll tell you what, we got a big thing today. We're going to discuss what's been happening with drought. What I want to do is to really show across the last 4 or 5 decades, what a serious drought is and what today's situation is. We tend to, we talked about it last week where, they see dry weather, that, you got a hammer, everything looks like a nail. All they're trying to do is to tease 2012 out of this and move with it. So at the end of the day, I'm going to try to put some perspective about what this drought is and everything else, because each one is different. There was a small one in 2003. There was a small one in 83. But the big ones were 74, 88, 2008, and, of course, 2012. So if this is a big one, I wouldn't say that yet, okay? But anyway, just looking at the maps, yesterday's maps came out June 22nd, 2021. If you look at this, especially in the Midwest, in the I states, it's virtually outside of Iowa. This is where the corn is grown. This is 90% of corn. Mm-hmm. So you can see that we don't even have a brown spot on this thing, which is drought forward, which is exceptional, serious drought. Mm-hmm. We do have some of that up in North Dakota, of course, which we've been talking about with spring wheat. So, that's on the other map to the side here. But what I want to start doing is comparing some of these maps so that we begin to get some history. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, and I will tell everybody this right now who's listening, is that there's 2 things about drought. One is you don't get rain. The other is heat, okay? And that is the hallmark of a tremendous drought.
Okay, so it's not only that you're just not getting rain, but it's extreme heat as well?
Yes, because heat really puts stress on the plants. So, 2012, I was in Kansas City, and I thought it was like living in Mercury. It was so hot. And same with 1988. We had like 10 days over 100 degrees in Chicago.
Oh, wow.
We had people literally baking in their apartments. Oof. And dying. Because Chicago was built after the Great Fire. Mm-hmm. It was built to hold heat in.
Yeah, so it's more for the winters, not expecting the summer conditions.
Yeah, because you wanted to keep the heat in winters, but they didn't want people to start fires in their house, which is what caused a big problem in the first place, right? Yeah. So at any rate, 88 was serious. We don't see that now. It's beautiful out here. We got 90 degrees, which is, pretty okay. Mm-hmm. But, we're not talking 100, 110. Okay. Like, 88 and before. So let's run through some of these maps where you can see, what really, a serious drought was. So we're going to go back to what 2012 looked like right now. So you can see there's a lot more red. Mm-hmm. It's right there in the heart of the Corn Belt. Mm-hmm. And
Indiana, Illinois,
right along the Ohio, Mississippi River. But we had a lot more dense stuff down in the I states. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, it fired up, and of course, it topped out on August 23rd. But the hallmark of that thing was it was a blast furnace out there, especially in Kansas City. Now we're going to get to, in my opinion, a real drought, which is 1988. And this thing, as you can see, virtually the entire spring wheat crop was shot.
Yeah, that red all along the Canadian border there.
Yes, and of course above that is where the Canadian spring wheat is grown. So we had the shortest spring wheat crop we've had in the last half century. In 1988, we had 189 million bushels. We usually had about 400 or 500. So we lost more than half. Of course, the market skyrocketed. But you could also look down at the I states and everything else. There was pressure on all the grains.
Yeah, it's not the dark red there, but it's still red.
Yes, exactly. So, and the thing was that this was where I was living in Chicago, like I said, and I'll never forget this. It was like 103 degrees, and the next day I was going to go to a Cubs game, And all of a sudden, it just felt like there was a huge amount of moisture in the air. And we went to the Cubs game. I mean, it opened up, pouring, and people were just sitting there so hot.
Yeah.
We just sat there and just got rained on, and we're happy. So,
water park.
that, my friends, is a drought. But, also, climate change, all this kind of stuff, talk about this. You got to look at, the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl. And this was 1934. We were in the teeth of the Great Depression. I mean, this was when FDR thought that he was going to be the last American president. Because, 32, the Depression bottomed out. And then this came right behind it. And, I mean, look at this.
Yeah.
That is a drought. That is brutal. They were saying that in July of 1934, it was 115 degrees in Minneapolis. I mean, not Las Vegas.
Yeah. Minneapolis.
And all the way through the Midwest. So, before you guys get like all bowled up and everything else, got to keep everything in perspective, which is why, the old timers like us, it's just like, I'm not saying that this isn't serious, but I'm saying I do know what super serious is. And this ain't it, as we used to say on the trading floors. So it's really about keeping perspective. I'd say that this is about a 0.25 out of a 1 drought, because compared to July of 1934, 88 was probably an 85, 90% drought, and then they go beyond that. But you have to have 100-degree blast furnace heat to really start pulling the moisture out of the ground and stressing the plants enormously.
Okay.
So
keep an eye on those temperatures as well as the rain gauge.
Exactly. And we're seeing rain, but yet, the temps just aren't doing it this year. They're just not doing it. And of course, the market is reacting to that. And, of course, everybody's getting antsy on the long side, but yet, we still got $5 corn, but yet they're still, as we used to say, praying church at the Board of Trade.
Yeah.
But they keep praying in the pits. For, and we talked about this last week, dear Lord, please kill everybody's grain except for mine. Yeah. So that we can get these, corn back up to $8 and I can get out of this thing.
Yeah.
But it's really, full of hopium and everything else. And what I want to do is, when you and I joined as partners, it's really about bringing the experience and, some level-headedness to trading. And you got to remember, I mean, we had $3.40 corn and $8.60 beans a year ago.
Yep.
And I mean, it's been a nice run. And, it's famous last words when, if I swear, if we get regular rain, corn's going to go into harvest at $4. And then everybody's going to look like either crying in their beer or look like an idiot.
Yeah.
So it's really about keeping perspective and working with somebody who's been around a few years, like we have.
Yeah, so keeping a level head, not letting the hype get too much.
Exactly. And if you talk to somebody who, went through the 88 drought even, they're going to say they lost half their crop in corn, even in Illinois. So, that's why we've got the commit levels at a half, because, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves and overcommit the crop. But yet, with crop insurance, you're still going to do quite nicely because it's going to be a much higher price. But, you got to remember that if you lose half your crop and the price goes up to $8, you're still behind because you've lost half, $8. You're getting $4 corn.
Yeah.
Plus your crop insurance. So it's really about getting the most for what you've got and playing this exactly the right way and level-headed, like you said.
Yeah. So any other things to note with the corn and soybeans markets?
If rain comes in the next week or so, look out. But what happened, corn market today just got punished. And it was, there was a reason for that, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But yet what's happening is the corn chart is starting to break down. And we first saw the first breakdown in the meal chart about 2-3 weeks ago. We saw that starting to weaken and break down. And now the corn's coming behind it.
Okay.
And, it's got probably more to do with the hog situation and that sort of thing. because with the meal breaking down, corn breaking down, the feed stuff is starting to loosen up. It's especially because, like we talked about, they crushed the hell out of this bean crop for oil, and there's got to find a home for that meal somewhere.
Yeah.
So anyway, they gave it some severe punishment this week, and we too, because we're coming right into the teeth of the harvest. I mean, right at it now. So they're dialing in on Interstate 70 in Kansas for the monster part of the crop coming, and it's looking good because dry weather is the best thing in the world for wheat at harvest. But we got some serious punishment today, which I think you having thought about going to law school, we had a situation where Supreme Court voted 5-4 today to let refiners back off using bios for their blends.
Yeah, so they let them have the exemption for biodiesel and ethanol.
Exactly. And boy, that's where they really dropped the bomb on this thing.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting because oil and corn and soybeans got smoked. Meal went up. Because all these spreads were unwinding. Yeah. So actually meal closed up higher on the day and everything else got smoked.
Okay.
So it was really, and of course, spring wheat closed higher today because we've talked about that with the weather. But meal and spring wheat were the darlings in the corn pit, or in the grain room today. But I have not seen meal and oil move that fast. It was just like the bottom dropped out.
Okay.
And but meal has really, really broken down hard, and that chart looks terrible. So at any rate, the people who are short the meal, that's part of what they're doing today was just getting the coverage and putting that in the bank. And if you'd had the guts to be long meal and short oil, which is it's not been a winning proposition at all. Yeah. Because you'd had to play for a game like this. But this could be the end for some of this stuff, because this is going to take another billion bushels out of the carryouts.
Yeah, on the demand side for corn and soybeans.
Yeah. So everybody's been yapping about dry weather. We're going to take the corn carryout down and blah blah blah. We're going to see $9 corn and all that kind of stuff. But now all of a sudden, the market works it out.
Yep. If you have that exemption and less demand,
high prices cure high prices.
So speaking of higher prices, inflation, and the energy markets, what's going on there?
CPI came out this morning, 3.9%. It continued to accelerate. The Fed has lost control. Nobody in Twitter. The only people who think the Fed has lost control is the Fed. So, and the thing is, we're seeing, crude oil has broke through 70, it's broke through 72. Now it's a situation where, if they don't have bio, they have to buy, it is a crude oil kind of a game that they're playing. So, really, really interesting, because we were looking at $30 crude oil about 5 months ago.
Yeah, not that long ago.
And now we're at 72 and heading north. They're talking it could go to 100, which is like ridiculous. But yet, if we're not going to drill, all we're doing is writing big paychecks to Saudi Arabia and these other clowns over there in the Middle East and Russia. So, but at any rate, somebody's going to produce it. But, the shale fields are firing up again. And, there's some money being put into the oil patch, as they call it. So, but yet at the end of the day, it is still running, and it is still running through the offers. And natural gas is running high because, air conditioning has been running, across the country. And the other thing is that, California has got some water problems. So they're starting to burn natural gas for electricity for their air conditioning too.
Yeah,
so
to fill in from the hydro.
Right. So natural gas has really taken a nice big run here. And I remember, a year ago you could have bought all you wanted at $1.80. Yeah. And now it's at $3.60. So you made double your money in 18 months. But that's markets for you. But it's really inflation. If we get 100 number at crude oil, it is going to get real ugly. Real ugly, because the S&P 500 closed at an all-time high yesterday. It probably did today. Who knows? I wasn't really watching.
Yeah.
But something's got to give. I mean, either crude oil is good or the stock market's good.
Yeah.
And gold is sitting there, 1900. Everybody's thinking about that. Everybody's thinking about Bitcoin. And, Congress is going to spend another couple trillion here pretty soon. And we'll see what that does to inflation.
Yeah.
So it's really, we live in interesting times. And we will see, but I will guarantee you if we print $100 in crude oil, it is going to get ugly. So hopefully we won't, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, aside from that, any other things to keep an eye on for the coming week?
We're coming up on the 4th of July, and, this really marks where, the wheat crops comes in, and now all of a sudden everybody's going to turn their attention to corn and beans, the harvest. So in other words, we're starting to feel the gravity of our harvest. So we're 2 months past Brazil and Argentina. Wheat's coming in. There's another couple of billion bushels in the mix, here in the United States. And now all of a sudden we're starting to feel the gravity of, 4 or 5 billion bushels of beans and 15, 16 billion bushels of corn coming here in the next few months. So, that's one thing to start thinking about. And of course the weather always plays in the summer.
Yeah.
And otherwise it's, COVID is, still a bit of a problem, but yet Americans are out doing things. So it should be a good time. Everybody enjoy the 4th. I certainly am going to. You too.
So, all right. For those of you who are Croptimize Pro subscribers, keep an eye out for our Croptimize Hedge Report for further insights on the market implications and the grain sales coming up there. If you're not yet a subscriber, you can learn more and sign up at thefarmcfo.com. We'll see you next week.